He was called the last messenger. The man who supposedly restored the one true church that, according to him, was lost after the apostles died. His name? Felix Manalo. At first glance, it sounds inspiring, like a story of faith and courage. Born into Catholicism, he began to question its traditions and practices. He searched for the truth, moved from being a Catholic, to a Methodist, to a Seventh-day Adventist, but he still wasn't satisfied. So, he decided to make his own path. In 1913, Manalo began preaching his own interpretation of Scripture. A year later, on July 27, 1914, he officially registered Iglesia ni Cristo, the Church of Christ, in the Philippines. And surprisingly, the movement grew fast, spreading across the nation and eventually worldwide. But here's where it gets suspicious. That registration date, July 27, 1914, happened to be one day before World War I broke out. Coincidence? Maybe. But that timing feels a little too perfect, because during that exact era, Freemasonry was also spreading rapidly in the Philippines, influencing leaders, politics, and even religious thought. And if you've ever looked closely at the Iglesia ni Cristo seal, you'll notice, it shares striking similarities with Freemason symbols, the triangle, the rays of light, the geometric balance, all classic Masonic imagery. So was it divine timing, or clever planning? Before we dig deeper, let's clarify something simple. What does Iglesia actually mean? Iglesia is just the Spanish and Tagalog word for church. It comes from the Greek word ekklesia, which literally means assembly or gathering. So, Iglesia ni Cristo means Church of Christ. But here's the truth, the Bible never gave exclusive ownership of that name to one organization. Because the true ecclesia isn't a corporation, a building, or a registry entry. It's the people who follow Yahusha, the ones living by his word, not by church rules or leadership orders. According to Inc. doctrine, the church that Yahusha founded turned evil after the apostles died. To prove that, they often quote Acts 20 verse 29, "I know that after I leave, savage wolves will come in among you and will not spare the flock." They use this to claim that the true church was corrupted, and that someone from the Far East would later restore it. That's where Isaiah 46 verse 11 comes in, calling a ravenous bird from the east, the man that executeth my counsel from a far country. And who's that man, according to them? Felix Manalo. But here's the problem, that verse was never about him. Historically, it referred to Cyrus the Great of Persia, who freed the Israelites from Babylon. The Hebrew word for east, Mizra, doesn't mean Far East. It just means east. There's no connection to the Philippines whatsoever. They also point to Revelation 7 verses 2 to 3, claiming Manalo is that angel from the east sealing the servants of God. But that angel isn't human, it's literally an angelic being. And that seal there represents divine protection, not a membership card. So wait, let me get this straight, according to Inc., Felix Manalo is an angel, while Yahusha, the Messiah himself, is just a man chosen by the Father. Ha! Real funny. That logic is so twisted it could tie your brain into a pretzel. Now, here's where things start to fall apart. If Yahusha himself said in John 19 verse 30, "It is finished," and if Hebrews 1 verses 1 to 2 says, "Yahweh has spoken to us through his Son," then how could there be another so-called final messenger after him? That's not restoration, that's contradiction. Yahusha was, and still is, the perfect and final messenger. He completed the mission. He fulfilled the prophecies. And he sealed the covenant. No one, not Felix Manalo, not anyone, can add or restore what Yahusha already finished. And here's something Inc. can't logically answer. If they claim that Felix Manalo restored the true church in 1914, then what about all the people who lived before that? Were they all doomed? So you're telling me, from the time of the apostles up to 1914, no one was saved? Was the Father being unfair? Of course not. Because Yahweh doesn't base salvation on church registration dates. He looks at the heart, not the membership. And another thing, if Inc. says they're the only ones who'll be saved, then heaven's gonna sound a lot like a karaoke bar, because most of their 3 million members are Filipinos. So what, when you enter heaven, you'll hear someone singing, "My Heart Will Go On," during worship? Salvation isn't a nationality contest. Now let's talk about the modern Iglesia ni Cristo. It's no longer just a religious organization, it's an empire. From bloc voting that dictates political results, to leaders living in luxury while members sacrifice their earnings every week, it's clear, the system thrives on power and money. People are controlled not through faith, but through fear. And when a member gets expelled, it's not Yahusha they're told to apologize to, it's Eduardo Manalo. Think about that. If you want to return, you're forced to write an apology letter to a man who doesn't even know your name, as if your forgiveness depends on him. Why not pray directly to Yahweh, the true forgiver? Why must salvation pass through a human gatekeeper? That's not divine authority. That's dictatorship. When you open your eyes, you start to see it, the twisted verses. The Freemason-like symbolism. The timing of their founding with World War I. The political control. The worship of leaders instead of the Creator. Everything points to one truth: this isn't a restoration of Yahusha's church. It's a replica built on human ambition. Because when Yahusha said, "It is finished," he meant it. There's no last messenger after him. No new founder needed. No registry required. The truth never left. It was just buried, under pride, greed, and power. If you truly follow Yahusha, then follow his words, not the commands of men. Because salvation doesn't come from a man's approval or a church's membership list. It comes from Yahweh alone, through Yahusha HaMashiach, the true, final, and perfect messenger.